slides. Basically, I do this because I don't assume everyone knows what really is blockchain. So therefore, I like to explain it in a very simplistic manner. Basically today, if you were to send an email, when you hit send, you know that your email gets passed from one computer to another on the internet, right? Similarly, if you were to send a file of any sort, you know that when you hit send, that file is transmitted, or little chunks of the file, or even maybe the whole file itself is transmitted from one computer and handed off to another on the internet. And next thing you know, your friend gets your file. But today, if you were to send a transaction of any sort, and it doesn't mean a financial transaction, it can mean a non-financial transaction, like for example, it can be a airline miles, right? When we send a transaction, invariably, you end up having a middleman. Now, who are the middlemen who help you with that transaction? It's mainly banks, of course, are the largest middlemen, payment gateways. How about Visa and MasterCard, credit card companies? They are also the middlemen. How about some non-financial middlemen? People like maybe perhaps lawyers. They're your middlemen, right? Because they are the one that helps you do a transaction. Even something like, let's say, a land office or land title office. When a buyer purchases a piece of property, the middleman usually is the land office or the land administration office. But along comes blockchain technology. It changed all that because now we don't need a middleman when we transact with each other. That middleman today is called blockchain network. Okay? So why is blockchain so prevalent, so exciting as a technology? On your right or your left, it's your conventional centralized database. Everything that we have today is stored in a great way, one way or the other, in a centralized manner. For example, the list of contacts on your phone, that is actually a centralized database. It's only stored on your phone. But in blockchain technology, it changed all that. Basically, 9 years ago, this gentleman by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, I don't know whether it's a gentleman or a group, or maybe a woman, I don't know. He said, I'm going to design a network. That network is going to be called a blockchain network. That network, what we're going to do is, we're going to take that list of anything, or that database. It can be a list of customer records, it can be a list of inventory in a company. We're going to take that and we're going to take a copy of it and put it in multiple computers. And these multiple computers work with each other. So he wrote a piece of software that allows each of these computers on this blockchain network and says, you're going to keep a copy of that same records on your computer. What happens is, basically what he created was something called distributed ledger. A ledger is nothing more than a list of anything. And he said we're going to distribute it across multiple computers. Now when that happens, it makes a very interesting feature, which means that if I were doing something on a blockchain network, if I lose that list, I know some computer on that network would have it. Therefore, everybody works together within the blockchain network. He also makes it interesting because today, if we have transactions that are, let's say, 1 million, we can have maybe 500 computers, but if we have 100 million transactions, we can add more computers to this network. And the nice thing about this network, within all the nodes of this blockchain, we are able to store that information securely because I'm sure you heard of the man-in-the-middle hacker. The man-in-the-middle hacker is basically, his job is to sit in between two computers and watch the traffic flowing between one computer to another. and he steals that information, right? It's very easily done if it's in a centralized database. I just watch your traffic flowing in and out of your computer. But in the blockchain network, all the computers on that network, when they talk to each other, the information is encrypted. When that information is encrypted, the man in the middle have no idea what's flowing through your network. That's the reason why it makes it extremely secure, right? The other thing that makes a blockchain network very, very powerful is that because it has this thing called immutability. Immutability means that when something is written on the ledger, it cannot be manipulated or changed by virtue of how the architecture of this network is. Now, because of that immutability, in fact, there are very few things in the world that are immutable. One simple one is, let's say your childhood memories. The first time you went to the beach, or the first time you went swimming, you always remember it, right? Nobody can erase that from you. So immutability in a blockchain environment is exactly like that. A transaction that's written cannot be manipulated. You can always go back to it, right? Because of this nature of this, blockchain becomes very, very powerful. Of course, it's also low cost because Satoshi said that if I wrote this bit of software, it's open source, I'm going to give it away. So that's the reason why the whole revolution of blockchain became very inexpensive way of doing transactions because of this open source nature of blockchain. In fact, NEM blockchain is also open source. It's a software. There are other open source software that you know of, which is things like Linux operating system. Even your phone operating system, the Android, is also an open source software. So a quick glance in terms of what NEM is. Basically, 4 years ago, we have a bunch of very, very smart young people in the NEM community who said, we saw what was happening with the Bitcoin blockchain, which is the first blockchain, and they said, I think we can write a better blockchain. And what they did in 2014 was set out to write from scratch, without copying anybody, 100% new code of the NEM blockchain engine. That's what they did. So they took 1 year, they finished it. But what were some of the things that would make the NEM blockchain very different is that they created many firsts. One of the first was they created what was a multi-signature wallets, right? Now, in the early days of blockchain, one person has one wallet and one-to-one transaction only. But what if you are a company or you are an enterprise? You will need, like similar to a company, you need a joint account, maybe 3 people signing or 5 people, right? So that 3 people approve it, then only that transaction is released. So we created what we call an editable multi-signature wallet. We also invented something that in the early days, we actually called it, today we call it tokens, but for us, we created a digital asset. In fact, you can create any digital asset on the NEM blockchain. And we call those mosaics. So if you are creating let's say a loyalty point, that is a digital asset on the NEM blockchain. We call that a mosaics. You can create a share unit or even a commodity unit on the blockchain. We also borrowed something from the internet world. I'm sure you know domain name. Domain name is like, for example, if it's CNN.com or Korea.com. That domain name belongs to, let's say, CNN. Everything after that is owned by CNN. We said, why don't we do the same thing? We call it namespaces. Namespaces is, if I am, let's say I'm from Malaysia, and I say, okay, I want to create a Malaysia loyalty point. So I will buy the domain name Malaysia. Everything after that is owned and under Malaysia. The reason why we did that is that when you have a digital asset that's being transported on the network, especially on the public network, you need the ability to identify it, right? So that's the reason why if, let's say, a company like LG decided we're going to create a LG loyalty point, right? So LG will probably own the namespace LG. And that can be transported throughout the network, and wallets can recognize it has an LG loyalty point, right? We also offered something that is very common in banking transactions, which is